Can a soccer movie be better than the match itself? Some fans will hate this ranking because the greatest football films are not always the ones with the biggest stars, the loudest stadiums, or the happiest endings. Some are about obsession, exile, broken dreams, and one moment that changes everything. Tonight, we rank the 20 soccer movies that turn the beautiful game into unforgettable cinema, and number 1 may start an argument. Number 20, Two Halftimes in Hell, 1961. A football match should never feel like a matter of survival, but this film turns the pitch into a pressure chamber. Set inside a wartime prison camp, Two Halftimes in Hell follows prisoners forced into a staged match against their captors, where every pass carries more weight than the scoreboard suggests. Long before victory made this premise famous for international audiences, this Hungarian drama brought a sharper, colder edge to the idea of football under impossible circumstances. What makes it powerful is not just the game itself, but the silence around it, the faces watching from the sidelines, and the terrible understanding that sport is being used as a spectacle of control. The film's rough, old-world atmosphere gives it a historical weight that many flashier soccer movies never reach. It earns the 20th spot because it proves one thing immediately: the beautiful game can become unforgettable when the stakes are anything but beautiful. Number 19. When Saturday Comes, 1996. Some football dreams are not born under bright stadium lights. They are dragged out of factory floors, pub nights, bruised pride, and one last chance to prove life could have gone differently. When Saturday Comes follows Jimmy Muir, a talented working-class player whose gift is obvious, but whose discipline keeps slipping through his fingers. Sean Bean gives the story a rough, believable edge, playing a man who can see the door opening, yet nearly destroys his own chance before he even walks through it. The film captures a very British kind of football fantasy. Not glamour, not sponsorships, not superstar fame, but the possibility that a local lad might rise from everyday struggle into professional football. What makes it linger is the tension between talent and self-sabotage. Jimmy does not only have to beat defenders, he has to beat his own bad choices. It earns this spot because it understands something painfully real. Sometimes the hardest climb in football is not reaching the pitch, but becoming worthy of the chance. Number 18. Mean Machine, 2001. A fallen footballer behind prison walls sounds like a gimmick, but Mean Machine knows exactly why audiences cannot look away. Vinnie Jones plays Danny Meehan, a disgraced former captain whose reputation has collapsed, leaving him with nothing but skill, pride, and a chance to lead a team of inmates against the guards. The setup is rough, comic, and proudly British, but underneath the jokes is a classic sports movie engine. Men with no trust, learning how to move as one. The film is a football remake of The Longest Yard, yet it works because Jones brings real pitch credibility, while Jason Statham and the supporting cast give the team a rowdy, unpredictable energy. Every training scene pushes toward one question: can a man who lost the world's respect earn back even a piece of it through 90 minutes of football? Mean Machine ranks here because it is not subtle, but it is endlessly watchable, and sometimes football cinema needs that bruising, crowd-pleasing charge. Number 17. Green Street Hooligans, 2005. This is not a film about beautiful passing or perfect goals. It is about what happens when football loyalty mutates into identity, anger, and danger. Green Street Hooligans follows an expelled Harvard student who lands in London and gets pulled into the intense world surrounding West Ham's firm culture. Elijah Wood's outsider perspective gives the story an entry point, while Charlie Hunnam brings charisma and menace to a world built on brotherhood, territory, and pride. The movie is controversial because many viewers debate whether it criticizes that culture or makes it look too seductive. That debate is exactly why it remains remembered. It captures the emotional electricity around club loyalty, but also shows how quickly belonging can become destructive when the badge matters more than the person wearing it. Green Street earns its place because it shows the darker side of football fandom, where the match is sometimes only the spark, and the real battle begins after the final whistle. Number 16. The Game of Their Lives, 2005. Every underdog story claims the odds were impossible, but this one has the rare advantage of actually meaning it. The Game of Their Lives tells the story of the United States team, that shocked England at the World Cup, a result so unlikely it still feels like a sporting myth. The film follows a group of overlooked players who were not treated like global contenders, yet stepped onto the world stage carrying pride, pressure, and the stubborn belief that one match could rewrite how people saw them. Its power comes from the old-fashioned sincerity of the storytelling. There are no superstar egos here, no glossy football empire, just ordinary men facing a team the world expected to win easily. That contrast gives the match its emotional charge. The film may not be the flashiest soccer movie ever made, but it has the heartbeat of classic sports cinema. It ranks here because it reminds viewers that football history is not only written by legends, sometimes it is written by outsiders who refuse to accept their assigned place. Number 15. Rudo e Cursi, 2008. Fame can turn two brothers into rivals before either of them realizes the game has changed. Rudo y Cursi follows Beto and Tato, two working-class siblings from Mexico whose football talent suddenly opens the door to money, celebrity, and temptation. Gael Garcia Bernal and Diego Luna bring natural chemistry, making the brotherhood feel funny, messy, competitive, and painfully believable. What starts as a sports dream slowly becomes a story about ego, loyalty, and the cost of being noticed. The football scenes matter, but the film is more interested in what success does after the match ends. One brother wants control, the other wants stardom, and both are pulled into a world where talent is never enough if discipline disappears. That emotional tension gives the movie its bite. Rudo y Cursi ranks 15th because it understands a truth many sports films avoid. Sometimes the hardest opponent is not across the pitch, but sitting across the dinner table. Number 14. The Cup, 1999. Few soccer films are as quietly charming as The Cup, because its biggest dream is not winning a trophy, but simply watching one match. Set in a Tibetan Buddhist monastery in India during the World Cup, the film follows young monks desperate to see the final on television. That simple idea becomes unexpectedly moving, because the story is not really about football access. It is about youth, longing, exile, tradition, and the strange way the global game reaches even the most remote corners of life. The humor is gentle, the pacing is calm, and the emotional pull is completely different from the loud stadium energy most soccer films chase. What makes The Cup special is how it treats football as a shared human language, something that can slip past borders, rituals, and distance. It does not need a dramatic last-minute goal to be memorable. It ranks here because it proves soccer cinema can be spiritual, funny, and deeply human without ever raising its voice. Number 13. Gregory's Girl, 1981. Sometimes the most unforgettable football story begins when the hero loses his place on the team. Gregory's Girl is a Scottish coming-of-age classic about a lanky schoolboy whose world tilts when a talented girl named Dorothy replaces him as striker. That simple twist gives the film its charm, because Gregory is not battling a villain or chasing glory. He is stumbling through adolescence, embarrassment, attraction, and self-discovery. The football scenes are casual and believable, but the emotional truth comes from how the game becomes a mirror for growing up. Dorothy's confidence quietly challenges the boys around her, while Gregory's awkwardness makes him one of the most endearing characters in British cinema. The film feels light, but it was quietly ahead of its time in the way it placed a young female footballer at the center of admiration and confusion. Gregory's Girl ranks 13th because it captures the innocent chaos of youth, where one substitution can feel like the end of the world. Number 12. United, 2011. Before Manchester United became a global empire, this story returns to one of the most painful chapters in the club's history. United dramatizes the rise of the Busby Babes, the young, gifted team shaped by Matt Busby's vision and carried by the hope of a changing football era. The film focuses not only on talent, but on youth, friendship, ambition, and the terrible fragility behind sporting greatness. David Tennant brings emotional weight as assistant manager Jimmy Murphy, while the story carefully builds the sense that this team represented something bigger than results. They were the future of English football, fearless and full of promise. That makes the tragedy at the center of the film hit even harder, because the audience is not just watching a club lose players, it is watching a dream break in front of a nation. United earns its place because it treats football history with dignity, reminding viewers that some teams become legendary not only for what they won, but for what they meant. Number 11. The Miracle of Bern, 2003. A World Cup victory can lift a nation, but this film asks what happens when that victory reaches inside one family. The Miracle of Bern is set around West Germany's astonishing triumph in the World Cup, but its real power comes from the home front. At the center is a young boy, his football dreams, and a father returning from years of hardship as a changed man. The match becomes a symbol of healing, not just for players on the pitch, but for people trying to rebuild their lives after a dark national chapter. The film blends sports drama with family emotion, showing how football can become a shared heartbeat when words are too difficult. Its final act carries the kind of sweeping feeling that makes sports cinema irresistible, hope rising at the exact moment defeat seems certain. The Miracle of Bern ranks just outside the top 10 because it understands that the greatest football stories are not only about winning, they are about believing life can begin again. Number 10. Fever Pitch, 1997. Every obsessed football fan has lived part of this movie, even if they refuse to admit it. Fever Pitch, inspired by Nick Hornby's Arsenal-centered story, is one of the sharpest films ever made about what it means to let a club take over your emotional life. Colin Firth plays Paul, a teacher whose love for Arsenal is not a hobby, but a calendar, a mood, a memory bank, and sometimes a wall between him and the people who love him. The film works because it never mocks fandom from the outside. It understands the rituals, the superstitions, the sudden joy, the ridiculous misery, and the strange belief that a result on Saturday can change the entire week. But it also asks a dangerous question. When does passion become escape? Fever Pitch ranks 10th because it captures football obsession with warmth and honesty. It is not about one perfect match. It is about a lifetime of waiting for one perfect moment. Number 9. Pelé, Birth of a Legend, 2016. Before the world knew the name Pelé, there was a boy carrying impossible talent through poverty, pressure, and the weight of a nation desperate to believe again. Pelé, Birth of a Legend, turns the early life of football's most famous icon into a colorful, emotional origin story, following his journey from childhood street games to Brazil's unforgettable rise on the world stage. The film is built for inspiration, but what makes it work for a general audience is the simplicity of the dream. A child with bare feet, a ball, and a style of play that the world was not ready to understand. It shows how creativity can be doubted before it is celebrated, and how the very thing critics dismiss can become the thing that changes everything. The football scenes lean into flair, rhythm, and joy, giving the movie a bright energy that feels different from colder, more tactical sports dramas. At its center is the idea that greatness is not just trained. Sometimes it is protected, shaped, and nearly crushed before it gets the chance to shine. Pelé's story carries instant recognition, which gives the film strong audience appeal. It ranks 9th because even when the movie follows familiar sports biopic beats, the legend behind it is too powerful to ignore. This is not just a soccer story, it is the beginning of a name that became bigger than the game. Number 8. The Keeper, 2018. A goalkeeper's story rarely begins with forgiveness, but The Keeper turns one man's second chance into a moving football drama with unusually heavy emotional weight. The film follows Bert Trautmann, a German prisoner of war who remains in England and eventually becomes the goalkeeper for Manchester City. On the surface, it is a sports story about talent being recognized in an unlikely place. Underneath, it is about grief, suspicion, prejudice, and the difficult road toward being accepted by people who have every reason to keep their distance. That tension gives the film its strength. Trautmann is not simply trying to win matches, he is trying to live in a country still carrying fresh wounds, while proving that a person can be more than the uniform history placed on him. The football scenes matter because every save becomes more than athletic skill. Each one feels like a small argument for trust. The film also carries a romantic and personal side, grounding the larger historical drama in intimate human emotion. What makes The Keeper stand out is that it does not treat football as escape from the past. It treats football as the place where the past must be faced in public. It ranks 8th because it brings cinematic drama, history, and sport together in a way that feels bigger than a scoreboard. Sometimes the most powerful saves happen long before the ball reaches the goal. Number 7, the class of 92, 2013. Some football stories are built around one superstar, but this one follows a generation that changed a club's destiny together. The class of 92 looks back at the remarkable rise of David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, and Gary and Phil Neville, a group of young Manchester United players who grew from academy hopefuls into one of the most famous cores in modern football. What makes the film so compelling is not just the trophies, the fame, or the global attention that followed them. It is the feeling that this group came from a football world that no longer exists in quite the same way, where youth players could grow side by side, fight for a place, and eventually shape the identity of a giant club. The documentary mixes nostalgia with pressure, showing how friendship, discipline, rivalry, and belief turned raw talent into history. For Manchester United fans, it feels almost sacred. For neutral viewers, it works as a reminder that greatness is rarely accidental. These players were not simply lucky boys who arrived at the right time. They were tested, doubted, pushed, and forced to become men under the heaviest spotlight in English football. The class of 92 ranks 7th because it captures something every football fan understands. Sometimes a team is not built in the transfer market. Sometimes it is grown, protected, and unleashed at exactly the right moment. Number 6. Goal. The Dream Begins, 2005. Every football fan has imagined this fantasy at least once. One scout, one chance, one shot to escape an ordinary life forever. Goal. The Dream Begins turns that dream into pure sports movie electricity through Santiago Munez, a talented young player from Los Angeles whose skill catches the attention of a former Newcastle United scout. What follows is not just a transfer story. It is a test of hunger, sacrifice, family pressure, self-doubt, and the brutal difference between being talented in the park and surviving inside professional football. The film works because Santiago feels like a dreamer millions of viewers can recognize. He is not born into comfort. He is chasing something that seems impossible, while everyone around him has reasons to be afraid. Newcastle becomes more than a club in the movie. It becomes a proving ground, a cold and unforgiving place where desire must become discipline. The training scenes, dressing room tension, and emotional family stakes give the story a classic rise-and-fight rhythm. Is it sentimental? Absolutely. But that is part of its power. Goal understands that football dreams are not only built on tactics and contracts, they are built on memory, sacrifice, and the belief that one great touch can change everything. It ranks 6th because it may not be the most critically perfect soccer film, but it is one of the most rewatchable, emotional, and beloved football fantasies ever made. Number 5. Victory/Escape to Victory, 1981. A prison camp football match should sound impossible to turn into a crowd-pleasing classic, yet Victory somehow does exactly that. Directed by John Huston, the film brings together war drama, sports spectacle, and movie star charisma in a story where Allied prisoners are pushed into playing a staged match against a German team. On paper, it is a propaganda event. On the pitch, it becomes something far more dangerous, a chance for pride, resistance, escape, and symbolic revenge. The cast alone gives the movie its legend. Michael Caine brings old-school command, Sylvester Stallone adds Hollywood muscle, and Pelé gives the football scenes a magical credibility that no actor could fake. His famous overhead kick moment remains one of the most iconic images in soccer cinema. What makes Victory endure is its simple but powerful emotional engine. The prisoners are not playing for a trophy. They are playing to prove they still have spirit, identity, and control over one small part of their lives. The film may be old-fashioned in places, but that is also part of its charm. It belongs to an era when sports movies were grand, sincere, and unashamed of big emotional payoffs. Victory ranks 5th because it is more than a football film. It is a mythic match where every pass feels like defiance and every cheer feels like freedom. Number 4. Bend It Like Beckham, 2002. Few soccer movies have ever made ambition feel this personal, this funny, and this emotionally complicated. Bend It Like Beckham follows Jess Bamra, a gifted young footballer in London who dreams of playing professionally while her family expects a very different future. The film's genius is that it never reduces her struggle to one simple conflict. It is not just parents versus football. It is tradition, identity, gender expectation, friendship, romance, cultural pressure, and the terrifying thought of disappointing the people you love while trying to become yourself. Parminder Nagra gives Jess warmth and determination, while Keira Knightley's Jules adds another layer of female ambition in a sport that was still fighting for wider respect. The football scenes are energetic and joyful, but the emotional stakes come from the kitchen, the wedding preparations, the family arguments, and the quiet moments where Jess wonders if chasing her dream makes her selfish. That is why the film crossed over so strongly. It speaks to anyone who has ever hidden a passion because home might not understand it. It is charming, but never empty. It is light on the surface, yet full of real tension underneath. Bend It Like Beckham ranks fourth because it made soccer cinema feel global, modern, and deeply human. More importantly, it showed that the fight to play can be just as dramatic as the final score. Number 3. Shaolin Soccer, 2001. No soccer movie has ever treated the sport with this much madness, style, and pure comic imagination. Shaolin Soccer takes a simple idea, martial artists forming a football team, and launches it into a universe where every kick feels like a superhero event. Stephen Chow turns the pitch into a battlefield of impossible movement, wild visual effects, slapstick timing, and underdog emotion. On one level, the film is completely ridiculous, with players flying through the air, shots tearing across the field, and matches that feel closer to fantasy combat than normal football. But that is exactly why it works. Beneath the absurdity is a sincere story about forgotten people rediscovering their purpose. The former Shaolin brothers are washed out, discouraged, and disconnected from the discipline that once defined them. Football becomes the way back to themselves. That emotional foundation keeps the comedy from feeling empty. Every outrageous goal has a pulse underneath it. The film also understands something many serious sports dramas miss. Soccer is already theatrical. Fans experience a perfect strike like magic, a comeback like destiny, and a final shot like a battle between belief and collapse. Shaolin Soccer simply makes that emotional truth visible. It ranks third because it is one of the most original soccer films ever made. It does not just celebrate the beautiful game, it bends it, exaggerates it, and turns it into cinematic fireworks. Number 2. The Damned United, 2009. This is the soccer movie for anyone who knows the most dangerous battle in football is sometimes not on the pitch, but inside the manager's head. The Damned United follows Brian Clough's infamous 44-day spell at Leeds United, turning a short managerial disaster into a gripping character study about ego, rivalry, pride, obsession, and self-destruction. Michael Sheen is electric as Clough, capturing both the charm and the sharp edges of a man who could inspire a room 1 minute and burn it down the next. The film is not interested in presenting football management as clean tactics and heroic speeches. It shows the grudges, the politics, the dressing room hostility, and the emotional cost of believing you are destined to prove everyone wrong. The rivalry with Don Revie gives the story its venom, while Clough's partnership with Peter Taylor gives it its heart. That contrast is what makes the film so compelling. It is about a genius who may be right about football, but wrong about how much one man can conquer alone. The period detail, sharp writing, and controlled tension make it feel less like a sports biopic and more like a psychological drama wearing a tracksuit. The Damned United ranks second because it understands football power better than almost any movie. It shows that glory can be addictive, but humiliation can be even more dangerous. Number 1. Offside, 2006. The greatest soccer movie on this list barely needs to show the match, because the real game is happening outside the stadium gates. Offside, directed by Jafar Panahi, follows a group of Iranian girls who disguise themselves as boys to try to enter a World Cup qualifying match. That premise could have become a simple protest story, but the film is far more clever, tense, funny, and emotionally layered than that. Most of the action unfolds near the stadium, where the girls are detained and forced to listen to the roar of a game they are not allowed to watch. That choice is brilliant. The audience feels the match through sound, anticipation, frustration, and imagination, the same way the characters do. Football becomes a symbol of joy being kept just out of reach. What makes Offside so powerful is its balance of humor and quiet anger. The girls are passionate fans, not political speeches. They argue, joke, panic, listen, hope, and refuse to accept that love for the game belongs only to someone else. The soldiers guarding them are not cartoon villains either, which gives the film its uncomfortable human tension. Everyone is trapped inside rules bigger than themselves. Offside ranks number one because it transforms soccer into something larger than sport: access, freedom, belonging, and the right to feel joy with everyone else. That is why its final emotional punch stays long after the final whistle. So, which soccer movie deserves the top spot in your heart? Was Offside the right winner, or should The Damned United, Shaolin Soccer, or Bend It Like Beckham have taken number one? One thing is clear: the best football films are not just about goals. They are about dreams, pressure, pride, and the moments that make fans believe again.